Hi, welcome to Derek Does. Today, we're doing these. Hi, welcome to Derek Does. Today, we're going to talk about the World War II Mountain boot. These were for the Mountain Division of the U.S. Army. It was a very elite division that was for mountain warfare. Alpine, mountains, climbing rocks, anything along that nature. And they had one big campaign that they actually got to call out to do in Italy, where they had their big battle. But today we're going to talk about the boots that division wore. It's a very unique boot. The normal boot, and if you remember, I did a version earlier on the M43 boot. This was your standard boot from 43 on for the U.S. Army. This is an original pair. I did a video on reproduction. I'll put it somewhere around here. You can take a look at that on a review. But we're not going to talk about these boots. We're going to talk about these boots. Now, these boots are very unique in how they look. They are a mountaineering boot, basically. The original boot, when they decided to make the unit, was they took a commercial hiking mountaineering boot and gave it to them, and then they modified it over the years from I think from 42 to 45. The boots that I have, I believe, are called the Type 3 and the Type 4. I don't have the super early ones. I have a bit of the later ones, which is the Type 3 and 4. And what this boot, why is it special is, and I'll do some close-ups too so you can kind of see everything. You could put skis on this boot. You could also climb mountains on this boot, or you could just march in the regular everything with this boot. Now there's different versions of the boot. This boot, which is the Type 3, this is in a 8.5D. Unfortunately, it's too small for me. I'm an 11, but these are all bigger boots. They were, if you notice, they have a real square toe, different than like the low quarter service shoe. Still low quarter on the service shoe section, but you would have gaiters on. These are actually used. These were from the war. They came in a all leather with a leather heel. Those are the earlier ones. Then the later ones in 43, I believe, the quartermasters figured out a way to put, and this is, I believe, the first boot to have a completely rubber sole. They had a rubber heel before. Like this one has, actually no, this is leather. They had a rubber heel like in a service shoe, but these actually have a completely rubber sole the whole way, which was huge because they figured out a way to put it on boots and it allowed the soldiers to be, one, more comfortable, two, to be quiet while climbing on rocks and that sort of thing, and also it would survive the elements a lot better than a leather sole. A lot more traction, that sort of thing. So like on a mountain, I'd much rather have this than that, because if you're gonna slide on a rock, like this one just has a little rubber piece insert right there, but it's made for skis too, so you can slide your skis on or your snowshoes or anything along that nature. And then they also made a version which is this pair, and this is for like when it's really icy, climbing rock, that sort of thing. This thing is kind of this is massive. It has these metal spikes basically everywhere, and there was two versions of this one, I believe. There was one where it was just metal here, and then the sole was smooth, so it was easier to get into skis, whereas this one, which was made just for climbing mountains, scaling, that sort of thing. And I believe this is the type of pair that they would have worn when they went to Italy to climb the mountain. So let's take a look at the close-ups of the boots, and I'll kind of show you, you'll see them closer. When you see close-ups, you'll see what I'm talking about with how they look and how they're different and that sort of thing. And they're really a cool boot. I don't know if it's a boot that I would want to actually wear every day because they are really clunky. They're heavy duty as anything. I mean, you're not going to get hurt wearing these boots, and you know, if you're up in the Rockies or something like this, these would be great boots to wear. But they'd be really heavy, and I'm sure the modern shoes would be much more comfortable. Whereas like an M43 boot, you could still wear that comfortably, or a low quarter service shoe, you could still wear comfortably, or even the Corcoran jump boots. You can wear those comfortably too. But these, I'll do a scale. I'll see how heavy one of these are. It's got to be like 3 pounds. So it's a heavy piece of kit. But let's take a close-up look at these things, and you can decide if these are something that maybe you want, or they're just kind of put them in your knowledge of World War II cool boots that they had. So let's start off with this pair. This is the earliest pair I have. And as you can see, it has a all leather sole, 8.5Ds marked, has a leather heel, and then a little insert of plastic, which I believe is also for the skis. The main thing you can see here, it has these cleats here for skis, and then the back here is actually grooved out so that the ski can actually snap into that. You can see it's on both sides. Both pair have the same thing. They're both the same. You can see they're well used. These are actually worn, really worn up here. I assume that's where the skis must have pushed against it because it's not as bad on the other side. The earlier pairs actually had, this just has a leather sole, or tongue. The earlier pairs, I believe, had a foam, and then later they dropped that. And then the size, besides the 8.5 on the bottom, it's probably marked here on the inside. I don't know if you can, I can't quite see. I believe they're marked on the inside on the earlier pairs like this. I don't see the manufacturer. Usually those are worn away. But anyway, as you can see, this is what they look like, this early pair. And that's the sole that came with it. Now we're going to move on to the next style of boot. And it's this pair. I'll do this so you can see it better. Very similar to the other one. It still has the 2 metal pieces on either side. It has the grooved, as you can see here, the grooved heel for your skis. It has the pull up. This pair's in a little better shape. Obviously, that first pair he had started off with, and then this is with the invention of the complete rubber sole. And you can see it's very similar actually to like a Vibram or something like that. And you can see it's Goodyear made it. Goodyear for the heel also. And it's marked, looks like 84 or 34, one of the two right there. Has a leather sole. I'm pretty sure these laces are not original. They might be actually, but they have this little eyelet on them, so they may not be. But they do feel waxed, like they probably waxed these. And you can see they stamped it. They started stamping it here. So this is a 6.5 EE, and then the KS stands for the manufacturer. Every manufacturer had their own stamp, basically. The KS was for the manufacturer, and if you have that knowledge, then you know who actually made this pair of boots, and you can see it's marked on both sides. It's pretty good. Obviously they only probably wore these for a year or two when you think about it. Even though the boots are 80 years old, the soles were only worn for a year or two, and that's why they still look pretty good. But this is this pair with, this is the Type 4, I believe, with the rubber soles. This is basically the same boot. This is, let me get these the right way. This is an 8D, also with a KS, so same manufacturer who made that pair also made this pair. And this pair is even in better shape than the other pair. It has the same laces here, if you notice that. So I think these are original laces to the shoe. It's a waxed cotton, I can tell that. And then it has like a yellowy eyelet on the bottom of it. Now this pair has the Goodyear sole, but it does not have the Goodyear on the fronts. But this one does. Maybe they only did it on one. I'll have to look on the other one. And it might even have an original piece of Italy right there in the sole. Who knows? But you can see they're really neat boots, really heavy. Again, we'll do a little weigh. We'll see how much they weigh, just to get an idea what these things, they're chunks. They're solid chunks that you will not stub your toe in these things. Let's look at the next one. This is the cleated pair. These are just crazy. I mean, this is like monster boots. There you can see that's the leather on the insole. This one is marked. This one is not marked on the outside like the other. So this actually might be an earlier pair because it isn't marked on the outside. I didn't look on the inside. There is some writing here. So this is an earlier pair. This might be a type 3 that has this type of sole. And just look at that thing. I mean, get stomped by something like that? That's just crazy. But these are all, here, I'll show you up close here. They have these teeth on them. And they're all marked US. The US did like to mark everything. So these are actually nailed. You can actually see the nails here. It's like a staple. These are put on with a screw and stapled, so they're not going anywhere. And then it also has it on the heel here too. If you notice, this, they actually dug out for the skis on this. And it might be because of these. Might be it's more difficult to get these boots over a pair of skis. But they did that on both pair. And you notice it's missing the little metal pieces here because it's really not a ski boot because of this. This is a pure climbing, hiking boot, just trying to get to the top without falling off. And that's a pretty impressive boot. Now inside the boot, they made them bigger, I guess. So, and they were all given these pretty thick pieces of felt. And for some reason, I have a bunch of them. I have, you can even see there's little grooves there that might be grooved out for, there might be something inside where those little metal pieces are. I just noticed that. But I have enough for 3.5 pairs of boots. I don't know if these were used or not because they don't look it. They might have been issued spares and then they just collected the spares. But you see it's a pretty heavy duty, it's probably almost 3/8 of an inch thick piece of felt that will give you cushion, but it also probably keep you warm a little bit too. Because these are made for the mountain, so you're going to want something warm while you're up there. And I don't think just a pair of wool socks is going to cut it. Let's weigh these. Let's measure this. I have the scale. We're going to start with the leather boot here. We're going to see how much that weighs. The leather boot comes in at 2.286. 2.286 pounds for one boot. Now, one thing I did notice when I had these boots out, the rubber sole boot is a little bit taller. I don't know if you can kind of see that. It's just, they probably added another 1/2 inch or so, maybe even an inch to the height of the boot. So this boot's going to be a little heavier, I think, because it has more leather and you also have this heavy rubber. This boot comes in at 3.079, almost 3.08 pounds. So that's a much heavier boot than the other one, almost by 1/2 pound. So it's a pound heavier, basically, than the other boot, wearing a pair. So now let's try out this beast. You can see it's got all the, does have a rubber or leather thick sole there, but it has all the metal pieces on it. So let's see what that comes in at. Now it comes in at 3.01. So it actually weighs less than the rubber sole. Kind of interesting. So if you have to think about that, that's 6 pounds of boots you're walking around in. So plus all your other gear, it does add up quite a bit. If given the choice, I'd go with these just because you can have 5.5 pounds of boot or 5 pounds of boot, which gives you a little better, but not that much, I don't think. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the World War II mountaineering boot, which is just a cool boot. It's again, it's not for me as in I need a pair to wear. because a lot of my stuff I like of that era, I actually like to have it for my own just so I can wear it every day. These I think are just too heavy and too clunky to be an everyday boot, just as an everyday boot. But maybe it is for you. Who knows? If you find a pair, definitely you know what they are when you see a pair and you're like, oh, hey, those were the World War II boots that I saw in Derek Does. So if you like this sort of content, please subscribe, comment, like, and I'm going to have a few more things from the mountaineering group because I picked up a huge collection of this stuff, of just unique stuff. But I will be doing other stuff too along the way, just so you're not inundated with only mountaineering World War II stuff. It's just, this stuff is kind of cool, and I just kind of wanted to get it out there so you can take a look at it. And I'll see you on the next Derek Does.